Well, today, folks, I'm going to do the final review of the Honda CB750K 1977 model. Pretty much have concluded this. The owner will be picking up in a few days, and I thought I'd do a walk around and talk through the various things that I did to this motorcycle. If you remember when I started the project back last fall, this is spring, April of 2014. The owner wanted a number of things done to the bike to make it safe and rideable. And he was not in a position to afford a complete restoration. So this project is a reconditioning, what I call reconditioning, which is making it safe and rideable. Very little was done to it cosmetically. That cosmetic work wasn't really the intention, and if the owner wishes to pursue that, he'll have to do that in at a different time. So let's start at the beginning, at the front end. If you recall, the original forks, they had kicked out chopper style forks that someone in the past had put on the bike. They're in very poor shape, they're rusty, and of course they tended to lift the front of the bike up. So the owner wanted original forks put back on the bike. The original forks are long gone, but these are original type forks that I got off of eBay that are the original style fork that was used on this bike. So these are used forks. The seals have been replaced and fresh oil in the lower unit. The fender has been replaced with, again, an original period correct fender. The original fender that was on this bike was rusted through on the top. Literally, it was rusted through, and it was in very poor condition. The brakes have been completely redone, and I mean everything. This caliper is a different replacement caliper, again, period correct. I could not get the original to seal here at the relief hole. You can see the fitting right here. That's where you typically would purge the air out of the system. Someone had cranked down the original fitting so tight into that aluminum they galled the bottom of the fitting. And even though I tried 2 or 3 different bleeder valves and couldn't get it to seal here, no matter what I did. So I fiddled with it a bit, set that caliper aside, got this one for a pretty good buy on eBay. So this is a replacement caliper body. I replaced the pads, replaced the piston inside here, all new brake lines including the hard line here as well as the hydraulic lines that go from the fitting on the back side. Let me swing around. The hydraulic lines that go from this fitting here, the union between the hard line and the rest of the system that goes up to the master cylinder, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So all the brake lines have been replaced. Obviously this is a new bleeder. The disc is original. It's in pretty good shape. And in fact, it wasn't really even rusty. So I just lightly cleaned it up and put that back into service. The tire is period correct, new tire and tube. And again, I use balancing beads to balance the tube. I showed that in a previous video, or balance the tire rather. So if you want to see how to install balancing beads, go back and watch that earlier video. But the tire in the tube is new and is period correct. Moving up to the handlebars. These are different replacement handlebars. The originals were a buckhorn style, again very chopper-esque from the period. One of the previous owners installed those. He wanted original style handlebars, so that's what these are. Again, eBay purchase. This control is original to the bike. The handle grips on both sides are original to the bike. This control I had to replace because it was all messed up. The wiring was damaged inside. The button here was literally missing. That's the starter button. So this is a replacement control, but the handle grip and the levers are original. Original master cylinder was completely rebuilt with all internals in here. Replacement boot here. Again, this hydraulic line is new. I did powder coat the master cylinder because it was in very poor condition, but the cap is original. New mirrors on both sides. Aftermarket replacement mirrors. In fact, they still have the blue film on the back. I haven't taken that off yet. I'll probably let the owner do that. Obviously the tassels on each end of the handlebars, he wanted to keep those. They're not to my taste, but it's his bike, so I put them back on. All new cables, throttle cable, clutch cable on this side, choke. I've replaced the choke cable. So all of those are new as well. So the front end has had a lot of work, and probably, in fact, 2/3 of the work I put into this bike has been on the front end. Moving around to the side, had a lot of oil leaks on this bike. There's a gasket behind this cover. There's a gasket behind this cover, both of which were leaking, so I had to pull these covers off and replace those gaskets. The seal here behind the shift lever was leaking profusely, so I had to pull, well, I had this off anyway, I replaced the seal. This cover had to be sourced because it was missing on the original was missing when I got the bike, so I found one of those on eBay. The air cleaner, I think it was the original air cleaner, in fact, was still in the bike, believe it or not. It was in terrible condition. It was full of acorns from mice, and it was oily and dirty. It was a Honda brand. It still had the Honda part number. That's why I think the air cleaner had probably never been changed. I did put on a new fuel line here. The original wasn't in too bad a shape, but while I was up in here, I went ahead and put a new fuel line on it as well. 4 new spark plugs, appropriate for this engine. I think that about addresses most of the things on this side. It had to be thoroughly degreased because there was oil all over the place. I mean, underneath here where the kickstarter, or rather the kickstand mounts, was all full of oil. Again, this is the replacement, or the repaired, I think would be a better way to phrase it, kickstand that I had to figure out a solution for. That was on a separate little video. This took a lot of thinking to get this in the way I wanted it. Put a lot of effort into that little side stand. Center stand is original. The drive sprocket behind the cover here, the chain, the rear sprocket are new replacements. The originals were in very poor condition. It had been geared up significantly. In other words, someone was trying to make a cruiser out of it. So what they did, they went to a 1/2 larger on the front, and they went to a, I think if I recall, it was a 3 or 4 tooth smaller on the rear, essentially slowing the engine down at cruising speed. Nonetheless, all the parts need to be replaced, so I went ahead and put it back to the original gearing. One thing I did find on the chain is that the side clip, the safety clip that typically fits on this side, was actually missing. It scared the heck out of me when I realized it, because I had ridden the bike a few times earlier working on different things last fall, and when I found that safety clip, that spring clip missing on the chain, that's a very scary situation, because that chain had come apart at speed. Lock up the rear wheel, pulling the clutch won't do any good in that case because the chain would have locked up the rear wheel. Very dangerous condition. I have never seen that before on all the bikes I've worked on in my career. New replacement rear shocks. The originals were in very poor condition, and the owner wanted the shocks replaced, so I did that as well. That was a fair amount of work, more than I was expecting, because I had to take all this this backrest and bars and everything was tied together, and what I thought was going to be a 10-minute job ended up being about an hour and a half or 2 hours. Had to replace most of the light bulbs, including in the control panel, the tail light. They were just burned out or had been damaged somewhere in the past. Again, moving around to the right rear, in the rear tire and wheel, the brake shoes are new, the springs are new, the brake springs for the shoes. I did pull the swing arm out and double checked it and make sure it was okay. I was thinking I was going to have to replace the bushings, but I didn't. They seemed to be okay, so I greased everything and put it back together. New tire and tube in the rear as well. I could not find an original style or OEM type replacement rear tire for this bike, not new. I could find them used, but I was not comfortable putting an older used tire on this bike that someone is going to be riding, because I just don't know the condition of it. So this is a new tire. It's not an exact match, of course, to the tread pattern, but it'll be reasonably priced and it'll be serviceable for the owner. And I think I mentioned I put a new tube in it as well. Someone previous had replaced the adjusters here. There's one on each side with the wrong ones. I don't know why. I suspect this bike might have been in some kind of a minor accident at one time. But anyway, they were totally the wrong adjusters for this bike, so I had to source these off of eBay as well. And in addition to that, this chain cover had been replaced with another Honda chain cover, but it was not the right one for this bike, not even close. The bolt holes didn't line up, and I had to source this replacement off of eBay as well. One of the other things that I noticed is this foot peg is bent. It's bent forward like that. And again, I think the bike had been in some kind of a minor altercation, must have been stuffed into a ditch. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I did not attempt to straighten this. I left it as it was. It doesn't seem to really create any problems, so I thought better of trying to straighten it. Just leave it alone in this case. I did replace the rubber bumpers for the side covers on both sides because they were dried out and cracked. So there's 3 on each side, one underneath here for each of the side covers. And I'd shown in a previous video replacing the seal under here for the tack drive cable, because that was leaking really badly as well, and oil was draining when it was on the side stand, draining that way down and contaminating the whole other front side of the engine. So I changed that as well. As I think I mentioned before, I spent quite a bit of time cleaning it out, or cleaning it up. It was all full of oil and grease. It had been sitting for years and hadn't had much TLC, so put a lot of effort in trying to just get it clean so I could work on it. The seat, the owner wanted to retain, as well as the backrest. And obviously the gas tank is original to the bike. So that's pretty much it, folks. All the wear items, all the critical wear items, safety items have been gone through. I did not, by the way, do the bearings and the wheels. I checked them, both front and rear, and they're in good condition, so I cleaned them, re-greased them, and put them back in. So that concludes the Honda CB750K project. I hope this was of interest to folks, and again, thanks for watching.